In the history of NFL draft drops, let me tell you, the Shedeur Sanders free fall might take the cake.
Was it because they thought he was cocky? Was it because of his dad? Was it because he was too brat? All the other nonsense that you hear. Because it isn't because of how he plays the game. I agree with you.
I'll take you with our next pick right here, man.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Let's be legendary.
Yeah, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, man.
Okay, let's get to the Shedeur Sanders thing. So, let me tell you something. It's never a bad message to tell your kids, be humble.
Marcus, why did Shedeur not get drafted in the first round?
Because 32 teams didn't think he was good enough to get drafted in the first round.
The Seattle Seahawks have traded the 144th pick to the Cleveland Browns. With the 144th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado.
Isn't reality in regards to Shedeur and Theon. Theon's not going to interfere.
Welcome to At the Office, Cleveland's home for sports talk that never clocks out. From the latest headlines to heated debates, we're diving into everything sports. It's your hosts, Noah, John, and Erik.
What is up, Cleveland? Welcome to At the Office, an emergency board meeting version, a podcast where three work buddies debate and discuss the top stories in Cleveland, around the country, sometimes the globe. I am your host, John. I am joined by my pals, Erik and Noah. And before I kick it to them, a quick reminder, you can join us too. Send us a comment, YouTube, Facebook, or X, or text or call the show at 216-260-3433. That's 216-260-3433. We called this meeting because the draft for the Browns was a big deal. There were a lot of trades. There was a lot of movement. People who predicted chaos for the draft got exactly what they were looking for. But before we get into it, and before I even see how they're doing, I wanted to remind you that our show is brought to you by D&D Meadery. Two twin brothers, Derek and Dominic, from right up the road in Madison, Ohio, rekindled the long-lost art of making mead. It's a great mixer. It's a great straight drink. It's great before or after dinner. And if you use the code @the-office CLE, you can get 5% off your order if you buy two. So I would advise you to buy two because A, you get the deal, and B, they're going to go fast. But that's D&D Meadery. We're so proud that they've sponsored us and happy that they're a part of the show. That was a mouthful to start. Before we dive into the draft and all things Browns, Erik, Noah, we did a 4-hour and 5-minute show on Thursday night. We've talked 3 or 4 times since then. How are we doing?
Doing well. I've been resting since Thursday night because that was a lot to be on for over 4 hours. But no, I'm excited and I can't wait to break this down with you guys. Noah's got a little shirt on today.
You want to know how I'm doing? I'm ecstatic. I'm elated. I'm happy because the guy I wanted the Cleveland Browns to select in the first round somehow found himself in the 5th round and still ends up being a Cleveland Brown. I am so excited that Shedeur Sanders is here. I can't wait to talk about this draft, man. I have a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of thoughts that I just cannot wait to put out there for the internet to hear.
A lot more adjectives too, I'm sure.
I'm
excited to hear them.
The adjective king, if you will.
I love it.
Well, this isn't a show where we have a script or an agenda or topics we want to hit. We wanted to get together just to talk Browns draft. Noah's got a ton of energy, as do I. I wanted Shedeur as well. Just to quickly recap, the Browns made a lot of moves. They traded out of 2, went back to 5, took Mason Graham. Then they got Carson Schweisinger, round 2, pick 33. Quinshawn
Wait,
Jenkins.
I'm going to stop you for a second because you called that pick out. So give yourself a pat on the back. You called the linebacker from UCLA to be a Cleveland Brown in our mock draft. So I want to give you credit where credit's due.
No, you know I love my flowers, and it means a lot to me that you call me out, even though I threw our show 25 minutes late because I can't do time or work a MacBook. But thanks for sticking with us. I did say we would take Schweisinger. I did say we'd take Junkins, and I did say we'd take Shedeur. Now, I sure as hell didn't think they'd go in the spots that they went. But when you add Dylan Gabriel, Harold Fannin, Dylan Sampson to the mix, and then Shedeur, they had one heck of a 3-day stretch. Noah, you're our resident football guy. That doesn't always mean you get the first word, but you had so much energy. Let's just get it started with the Shedeur piece, right? It's your T-shirt. It's the quarterback room. It's the Browns and the quarterbacks. Before we get into the whole draft, tell me what your thoughts were as you saw us make the pick and what you think about the quarterback room now.
I know you want me to keep it Shedeur focused, but I have to go a little bit bigger picture for a second because I thought this pick was never going to happen after they took Dylan Gabriel the day before with their last pick in the 3rd round, which me and Matt came on here scratching our heads because we thought it was a reach. So I didn't think this was going to happen. I wasn't even full-blowing paying attention to what was going on in the draft because of the Cavs playoff game, because I was going to the Guardians game later yesterday. We were at the farm. They had a watch party there. Leave at halftime, look down at my phone. Holy shit, they selected Shedeur Sanders. The T-shirt automatically goes in the dryer to get the wrinkles out because I knew what I was wearing the next day. Shedeur, to me, the slide is unprecedented. It's absolutely insane to me that he fell to the 5th round, regardless of the character concerns that some might have about him being cocky or not having a lot of humbleness, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Humility, that works too. He's a talent, man. Even if you didn't like him or you didn't think he was going to be the best, he still was graded as a 1st round, mid 2nd round to 1st round talent in everybody, all types of people's boards. So the fact that we got a guy in the 5th round that has this city buzzing more than the Mason Graham pick, hell, even more than the Judkins pick, who is an Ohio State Buckeye. I'm so excited to see what the hell is going to happen with this quarterback room because we have not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 quarterbacks signed to this roster. And an NFL team only carries 3 typically. So who's getting cut, traded, thrown to the curb? I don't think it's going to be Shedeur because I think he's going to start a game for us this year. But I digress.
Wow, that was a lot. That was a lot. Let me tell you where I agree and where I disagree. First of all, I disagree that we don't know why he slid so far. We know exactly why he slid so far. It's the circus that surrounds this guy, and it is, exactly as you said, his lack of humility. GMs talked to this guy, and they didn't like what they heard, period. Now, picking him in the 5th, the Browns have a little more power than you might think. If his dad's causing us a headache, we can cut him without much issue. If he's not a good locker room presence, we can cut him without much issue. So I think the NFL in general sent a message, back off. You're in the professional landscape now. We're not going to take lightly to you trying to railroad us in the press, etc. We've seen how that's happened before with OBJ. The Browns don't want that. No other team wanted that. The thing that scares me about him, I do think that he has talent. First of all, you touched on Dylan Gabriel. It should be noted that Gabriel's upside is that he throws with a lot of anticipation, which is really, really important in the NFL. His downside is that he has a weak arm, right? Now look at Shedeur. It's kind of the opposite issues. He has a really strong arm. What scares me a little bit is that from the time Shedeur has been a kid, his dad has been designing offenses around him. What's it going to be when we're not designing offenses to cover up some of his flaws? How's he going to adapt when he faces adversity? We don't know the answers to these questions, but I'll tell you my absolute favorite thing that I saw on draft night, day 3 from Shedeur. He's excited. He made it clear, all I want is a shot. I'll do the rest. I love that attitude coming in. He's already taking the right tack. And listen, this is a kid. It's easy to hate on a kid that, he was born rich and he's showing off his watch and all that shit that comes that nobody likes, especially going into a locker room with a bunch of guys that came from nothing. Yeah, that's annoying, right? But
I love it personally. Give me the flash, but I see why people don't. Continue.
So far, what I've seen from him, I like. I hope that continues because he needs to come in and be a leader and prove himself on the field. His flash and his, $100,000 watch that either daddy paid for or now at this point NIL paid for, no one gives a shit. But you start throwing for touchdowns in Cleveland, this fan base will back you 100%. So I hope he puts his nose down, works hard. And Deion, I think the NFL made it very clear, stay the fuck out. And I hope you can do that.
It'll be interesting to see. I love a lot of points that you guys made. I think you're spot on with what the national zeitgeist is around this kid. I do disagree with some of the narrative, not because it's wrong, just because it didn't cost other people as much. So one of the first curiosities I have based on your statements, I agree, is a flashy kid, doesn't seem very humble. That said, if he's not humble, Johnny Manziel's farther down the spectrum of lack of humility. He ended up a first-round pick. We've seen people come out and talk about what they're going to do in the league and act like they had already made it before. Do you think it was just the lack of humility, or do you think there's bigger things at work?
I think it was more Deion on top of it. I mean, a lack of humility is one thing, but if Joe Flacco, who Deion's already tweeting about is his own age, he has one bad game, he has a microphone in front of him, like it or not. He's still head coach at Colorado. They extended him. He has that personality. I mean, he's on every other commercial on draft night. So knowing that he's going to be chirping, I think it's just a headache. And I think they were trying to send a message to the family.
See, here's my thing. I agree with you. Like, that's probably what it is. It's trying to send a message to Deion, whatever. But John's right. Johnny Manziel had red flags that people knew about as regular fans, not to mention all the other stuff that has come out with documentaries and everything since the Browns selected him. And he was a first-round pick. Now, he was talented as all hell in college, and I get that. But Shedeur, like we have all said, was rated a top quarterback in this draft at a position that is needed so badly in the NFL at all times. Everybody's trying to upgrade their quarterback at all times, unless you have Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, what have you.
That's about it. Yeah. I will say, I think you should take those ratings with a grain of salt, though, because, Mel Kiper's been the biggest mouthpiece behind Shedeur. And if you look at his history of who he said was going to succeed at quarterback over the years, he hasn't really hit very hard on many of his. I mean, I don't want to go through the list, but I'm just saying, take it with a grain of salt what these experts say and expect.
I feel Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's why I say, there's a composite big board of everybody, all mock drafts that they can find. They kind of rank prospects how that is. And even then, it would have Shedeur in the late 20s. So I know Mel Kiper is the face of mock drafts or whatever, but I don't take anything he really says to heart because
but you are
crapshoot at him.
You're right, because he is a controlled, polished passer. He has the talent. You're absolutely right there. So the slide is historic in the sense that we've seen players that have been arrested for assault that haven't slid as far. So clearly there was more at work. I don't know if he bombed the interviews like some insider said. A lot of people thought that was a smokescreen, but the more he kept falling, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. It's interesting, that's for sure.
There's a lot of pieces at play here, too, with that. There's the element of it that says he's flashy. There's the element that we all know is the NFL, where the NFL says we don't want people who think they're bigger than the league, especially off the bat. It's a very pay your dues, and if not, we'll make you pay them kind of organization. When I think back over the years to everyone from Shedeur Sanders slide to Johnny Manziel to Colin Kaepernick for different reasons, too. I also know that the owners of the NFL are 32 billionaires. They get what they want, and they do what they want, and they rarely have to get caught and pay for it. I'm not calling foul, but I am saying that if in 6 years there's an NFL breaking story that they colluded to make sure Shedeur slid until at least the third round. Would not surprise anyone either. The reasoning could be a lot of different things. I don't want to speculate at this point or accuse people of things that I don't have evidence to support. But you're not dealing with a free market economy 100%. Well, it's still the owners and Roger Goodell that get to call most of the shots. And if they said this kid ain't getting drafted round one, then that's it.
I don't think that's true, only because if you're a team that really thinks Shedeur is going to help you win games, then you don't give a shit about what the owners want or think. I think you go after him. But I do think that, regardless of the slide, since I want to talk about all of our draft picks, but regardless of the slide, I think we should talk about how he fits into this team and what he can do for us. I said what scares me, he's a high percentage, completion percentage kind of quarterback, but most of those have come from screens and checkdowns. That's what scares me the most. I think it was like 23% of his passes only were over 10 yards, only 23%. That's not a big number. Obviously, we drafted some guys that can help with the screens, and we can have an offense like that. But when he did throw the ball downfield, he was shown to be accurate. I like that. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think he's going to work hard, and I definitely think he'll make the roster. But I hope we take our time and develop this guy and develop all of our quarterbacks. One thing that you guys didn't note that I think is pertinent here, people talking about how many quarterbacks we have on our roster. This could be some playing chess, not checkers by Andrew Berry, because 2 weeks, 4 weeks into the season, when a team needs a quarterback and all of a sudden we have control over quite a few, we may just find ourselves with even more picks or leverage to get a good deal done where we ship one of these guys out that are surplus to our own requirements.
And it's a perfect natural segue to the next topic I wanted to bring up for our discussion, which is what do you do with a quarterback room that's suddenly packed? You still technically, theoretically have Deshaun Watson. You pick up Kenny Pickett. You draft Dylan Gabriel. You now have Shedeur Sanders. Joe Flacco, who's 41, I believe. He might turn 42 this season. Somewhere in that range is in the room too. And to Noah's point, most teams only carry 3 quarterbacks. So let's talk a little bit about what you expect to happen. Who's going to start? Who has a chance to play? Who's going to sit bench? Who's going to end up on another team or out of the league when the season starts?
Yeah, I think Kenny Pickett, this is my bold take, even though I think they really like him. I think Kenny Pickett's going to get dealt before the season starts now. I think Joe Flacco gets named the starter for week 1. I don't think he starts the whole year. I think Shedeur is going to end up on the field, like I alluded to in my initial take. The whole thing is really, really interesting because 5 quarterbacks. I mean, a lot of people made the joke, just sign them all and let them compete. Well, they kind of just did that. We have 5 quarterbacks on the roster. Deshaun Watson's done here. We all know that. We've talked at length about how he'll go on the PUP list and then they'll cut him next year. So I'm not worried about what his spot in all of this is. His spot is to sit in the gym over there and rehab and earn his money and get out of our town sooner rather than later. I'm in favor of Shedeur being, an eventual starter of this team, as we've mentioned before, but they also seem really high on Dylan Gabriel. I mean, they used a 3rd round pick on that kid. So it's going to be cinema. I really wish we could be eligible for Hard Knocks because this is the team to follow for Hard Knocks. And if they aren't making something in-house like they have in the past with building the Browns and the Browns Unleashed, where they have like episodic stuff coming up behind the scenes, they are missing the mark on some money they could have to be made there.
I will say, Noah, I think you're cart before horse a little bit, saying that eventually you want to see Shedeur as the starter. Let's have him prove himself. Let's see what he does in preseason. Let's see how he looks and let's develop him. I mean, he could be trash in the NFL. We really don't know. We're taking a flyer on these guys. I'll say it's an interesting take to think that Pickett will be dealt before the season. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that Pickett's had a rough time so far in the NFL, but he has some athleticism and he could surprise you. He could be a guy that surprises you. I think as it stands now, Flacco's probably the starter. But I don't think that this front office is afraid to make changes. It's not a situation anymore like it was with Deshaun Watson, where you have ownership saying you're playing this guy, period. You don't have a choice. I think now there's some flexibility, and we're going to see the best talent reach the field. I hope anyway. It should be really interesting, though. Listen, this is a better position to be in than what we were in. We now have options, and we now even have a possibility of those options being decent and putting wins together. On the other side of the ball, the defense is starting to shape up. I mean, there's a lot of good things happening with this draft, and I would say that the Browns really drafted well, in my opinion.
I definitely said from the get-go that I wanted the more quarterbacks, the better, and then you'll just narrow it down once you have to. The good news is I don't think we have to know. If I had to call it now, I think I tend to agree with Noah. It would be odd for that to be like the first move of this offseason is to get Kenny Pickett and then turn around like a few months later and say, yeah, he's probably the least likely to make the roster. But
for the record, that means you agree with me, but go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were yeah. But no, the end of that point was going to be to say it would be odd for that to happen. But if I look at this list of quarterbacks, other than Deshaun, I feel like Kenny Pickett is the least likely to make it and to have time.
Oh, interesting.
On the roster. But I don't know. I said from the get-go, do you want Flacco? Do you want Kirk Cousins? Do you want to make a run at Aaron Rodgers? And I said, get as many quarterbacks here who you think can play as possible and figure it out. And that's what they did. I don't have any problems with this. And I agree, Erik, it's going to be interesting. And it's a good position for the Browns to be in.
Speaking of quarterbacks, do you guys not think that the Dillon Gabriel pick was a bit of a, I don't want to say mistake, but I feel like their guy went off the board and then they panicked and picked him, because that was the strangest pick, in my opinion.
So I agreed with you initially, but there was some news that broke. This was from ESPN Cleveland, that Dillon Gabriel was higher than both Jalen Milroe and I believe Shedeur, I think, was the other one, but Milroe being the key name there. It might have been Milroe and however the hell you say his last name. But it came out that he was really high on their draft board. So I think they ran up and grabbed their guy. I don't know if you also saw with Dillon Gabriel the video with Tommy Reese and Stefanski talking to him, and they're all giddy like kids at a candy store that he's coming to Cleveland, compared to some of the other reactions you saw with Shedeur. But
a third rounder? I mean,
I think it's a reach for sure.
His lack of size, his processing speed, his arm strength, his accuracy, these are all worrisome aspects of Dillon Gabriel's game, and we took him in the third. I wouldn't have been surprised if he was available in the fifth. I just don't understand the pick at the placement.
Yeah, that's what's really weird about it, is because they're going to turn around and have a different depth chart. Like, I almost feel like everybody knows Shedeur is better than Dillon Gabriel, but Dillon Gabriel went off the board first. Like, that's odd.
Now, I will say this. If you take away where these picks were made, I mean, and told someone, a month ago, this is what the Browns draft is going to look like, and these are the picks that you got on top of getting the Jack, I'd be ecstatic. But the fact that Sanders was a fifth rounder, Gabriel was a third rounder, it makes everything so confusing and so interesting as this plays out. I will say one thing. I'll give the Browns credit. They have got me interested and invested in a way that I have not been in this team in a long time. I really say a long time, 2 years, right?
I was gonna say
since the last playoff run, but they've got me hooked. All I've listened to is sports talk since this happened. All I've done is talk about what's going on, and now I'm finally getting to sit here and talk to you guys about it. I want to ask a quick question based off of all of this. Do you think the Shedeur pick was forced by Jimmy at all? That's a big talking point going around with Cleveland media, is that Jimmy forced the hand because he was still there in the fifth, and it's meddling, but who cares? In the fifth round, you're taking a flyer on him.
That's literally my thought. Who cares in the fifth round? It's his team. If he wants to meddle, I'd rather he meddle there than with the starting roster or whether or not to sign Myles Garrett.
You showed in the beginning compilation video, and one of the videos was the draft room after we drafted Shedeur Sanders. Not a single person it looked like their grandmas died, and that's Jimmy included. He wasn't even smiling. It was I don't know if that was, again, hey, this is a message we're sending, because it was such a weird, I don't know. I think the over celebration's a little weird too. But that, it looked like they were at a funeral. So clearly nobody seemed happy. I'm starting to take that more as a message being sent. But I don't know. I think you could be right. Jimmy directed this pick, and like you both said, hey, do that in the later rounds. They clearly let Barry work, which is nice, but it was weird. It was a weird reaction.
It was. And there's something else. Yeah.
That reaction too, real quick. They talked about it in the presser that they had right after they selected Shedeur, and said that they don't know exactly what they're talking about because they didn't watch the TV broadcast or whatever, but they would assume, because there was handshaking and the clapping like they always do with every pick, that the clip that they showed was just not timed up well or something like that. That's what Barry and Stefanski said. Now, are they just covering their asses a little bit? Probably, but who knows?
An interesting statement, because that camera's rolling to the feed truck at ESPN constantly. There's no like cutting. Like, they see the feed the whole time. So if that's the case, I don't know. That's an interesting. I didn't hear that. That's
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
The other thing that I find interesting about this entire thing is that this Browns offseason started with the Myles Garrett drama on Radio Row at the Super Bowl, and Myles Garrett said the Browns have a plan, and if their plan was this, and that's what they shared with Myles Garrett, what in God's name would you have thought if they, you don't know what you don't know, but we're going to draft 2, we're going to sign 2, we're going to cut 2, and we're going to start off with, holy cow.
Noah's got the answer on his shirt. It was $signs. Listen, John, I know you probably want to take us to break, but we have 5 other draft picks we still got to talk about.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to go to break, and then we can come back and talk about those. Let's pay some bills real quick. This is At the Office, and on the other side, we'll talk about the remainder of the Browns draft. So stay with us. All right. Just like Erik alluded to before the break, the Browns drafted other players than Shedeur Sanders.
Believe it or not.
Believe it or not. They moved down a few spots, took Mason Graham, linebacker out of UCLA, Carson Schweisinger, Quinshon Judkins out of The Ohio State University, Harold Fannin, tight end. We talked about Dylan Gabriel. It's another quarterback. Is it Dylan or Dylan Sampson? I think it's Dylan Sampson.
I think it's Dylan.
It's Dylan, yeah.
After Thursday, though, I am no longer the person to ask on names, apparently.
Yeah.
What was the safety's name for the Ravens?
Oh, what was the
Malike or whatever, and it was
Malaki, I think I said.
Yeah.
Oh
Malachi.
my God. Did we talk about that? Or there's a great radio bit where they're like, okay, we're going to go to the line. It's Malachi. And somebody goes, Malachi.
Yeah, you brought that up.
I thought
on
we
the
hit
live.
that. Malachi.
Make sure you guys check out the full 4-hour cut, because we were
Listen.
on one at the end of it for sure.
Listen, when you've said every round, every pick name in that first round, you're going to miss one.
You were killing it up until that point, and it was like
Sorry,
pick
Malachi.
29, and you shot yourself in the foot. Don't say sorry. He's a rat bird. He's Malaki or whatever.
Yeah, so unfortunately, as a quarterback for Ohio State, he's not a rapper, but he's a division rival. Will Howard going to the Steelers was I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but I was like, damn it. They always seem to draft Buckeyes that go on to do pretty good things in the league. So
Jack Sawyer, too. They drafted 2 damn Buckeyes.
yeah, I forgot that it's Captain Jack as well. But yeah, what do you think outside of the quarterback room? We had quite a bit of spirited debate on draft night about the impact that a defensive tackle actually has on a team. Linebacker is a position where we've been bereft of talent since we came back in '99. One Pro Bowler 1 year maybe, and it was way back in the early 2000s. Quinshon Judkins seems like a hell of a running back. I loved him coming out of Ohio State, and then we added depth at the tight end position. Curious what you guys' thoughts are outside of QB.
Go ahead. I went first last time, E.
All good. Listen, I'm, like I said, top to bottom, I'm pretty happy with this draft. The player I'm most excited about outside of Shedeur and Dylan, frankly, just Dylan Gabriel, seeing what they'll do, has to be Quinshon Judkins, just because as a homer, as a Buckeye fan, we saw what he did on the field week in and week out, and he's a talented back, and I think he's a guy that could be a good replacement for Nick Chubb, as sad as that is to say. The other Dylan Sampson, is another. I mean, that's going to be one hell of a 1-2 punch potentially. I don't know what that means for Jerome Ford. When we drafted Quinshawn, you would assume that he would have became the solid number 2 guy. Well, that's just gone up in flames, I think. I think Noah's right. He may just be cut. Mason Graham, we did debate it. I think he'll be a great addition to the team. It just wasn't a sexy pick. I think Noah said that on Thursday. It's hard to get excited about taking a D tackle number 5, especially after you traded back, especially after you were thinking that the players you really wanted weren't going to be available. We learned a lesson there. And like John said, at linebacker, I love Schweisinger, not only just because I'm currently learning German, so I'm excited to say his name. It'd be Schweisinger, but I think he does fit in a hole in an area of need that we've needed for a very long time. Adding another tight end makes sense just from the perspective of how Stefanski likes to run his offenses. I mean, what did they miss on here besides positioning a little bit? I don't think they did.
No, and I particularly also, just super quick now, because I know it's your turn, but I hate 6th and 7th round picks. I think they're overvalued. They never pan out. I liked trading 6th and 7th round picks to get people in the top 5 rounds.
I agree with that take too. I was kind of happy they were done after Shedeur, even though I wanted them. I'm gonna say I wanted them to go get Tez Johnson, who ended up going to the Bucks. Maybe he was a wide receiver that they took on a top 30 visit. And he was a late round talent. So at the late round, I would have taken that waiver. Regardless, I am really excited for what a lot of people, I've heard it a couple times, are deeming thunder and lightning. Quinshawn Judkins, Dylan Sampson, 2 of my favorite backs in this draft for the Cleveland Browns in terms of fit. I unfortunately still think that this might mean Chubb is not coming back, even though there were reports that the dialogue is open for him to come back. But 2 young backs, both of which I was really excited for and liked in this draft. I can't really complain. Carson, I'm not going to try to butcher his last name. The UCLA linebacker, I thought was a little bit of a reach in the moment, but he is highly sought after, and they haven't done a lot of investment at the linebacker position. That was kind of part of Andrew Berry's justification of the pick. So I was really happy that they went up and grabbed him, especially with the question marks with JOK. Who else am I missing? I'm not going to touch on Dylan Gabriel because I already did, and we already talked about that before the break.
The D tackle. You haven't talked about your favorite pick.
It's not my favorite pick, but for the value that we got out of him, and now knowing that we also added Shedeur anyway and all of that, I think it was a fantastic grab. I think he's going to be a staple for this defense and a help to Myles Garrett getting open, because it's one of those, you can't double team Myles and you can't double team Mason Graham. Mason Graham is going to stuff the run. Myles is going to pass rush your ass. I think it was a fantastic draft front to back. Throw the numbers out, throw when the picks happened. If you would have told me a month ago, this is what we got on top of the first next year from Jacksonville, I'd be ecstatic, elated.
Yeah,
all
real
the
quick,
stuff I said at the top.
2 points just based on what you said. Number one, I'm glad you threw that in at the end, because that's the real win of this draft, is we somehow stole a first from Jacksonville, who, by the way, is, one bad hit away from being in the bottom 5 again. That could be a really good pick for us. I think that was the steal of the draft. But you also mentioned bolstering the defense. What you didn't say, though, is what we really bolstered, and that's the run defense, which we've been pretty deficient at the last few seasons. So I'm excited to get guys that can help be run stop and gap stoppers.
Let me jump back in here real quick, because I completely forgot about, aside from Shedeur, because Shedeur is probably going to be my favorite pick, even if he doesn't pan out, because the value at round 5, it's just insane. Harold Fannin Jr., 20-year-old tight end from Bowling Green, was an absolute dog in the MAC, won every award and then some. I wanted him, especially because he's an Ohio kid, from Canton to Cleveland to Cleveland to Canton, because he's from Canton. That's
he was a safety, by the way, in high school.
But he's an athletic.
Talk about his speed, yeah.
Right. He's an athletic freak. He is going to be a great tight end, and in an offense that is going to be 2 tight end set heavy. And focused on the tight end position being such a big part of it. I can't wait to see this kid play. He's 20 years old. He had 1,500 yards last year in college football. He's young. He's gritty. He's a worker. And of course, he's from the area, so I'm pretty sure he's a Browns fan. He might have been a Steelers fan. Canton likes to dip their toes with that nasty city over across the border. But I'm ecstatic. I'm really excited to see this kid play in brown and orange, even though I've been watching him play in brown and orange the last 3 seasons. Shout out Bowling Green.
Yeah, I hope he takes the next step in his evolution, which is he's a little shaky when it comes to actual blocking, the work part of the tight end position.
Right.
But he's a guy with really strong hands that I think, like you said, will make such a great addition.
I mean, and to think about it too, Njoku, if you remember, was not a great blocker for a very long time, and they worked him into a role of being. He's a solid blocker at the tight end position now.
Definitely, but Njoku was a much better route runner than Fannin is now. He's a little shaky. Like, he's an athletic guy, but he's like awkward athletic. He has straight line explosiveness, which is great, but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not going to develop well, because I think he will, but it's an interesting, he'll have to work like everyone else.
I love the running back room. Dylan Sampson, Quinshon Judkins. Judkins was somebody you heard me talk about throughout the entire season, not just the postseason for the Buckeyes, but the draft season and silly season as well. I'm hoping Nick Chubb can come back and contribute meaningfully in some capacity. But if he can't, I feel like we're well positioned with 2 stud running backs who had really good college careers. AFC North, it gets cold, it gets windy, it gets snowy, it gets rainy, and you got to be able to pound the rock occasionally. You can't rely on just winging it all around the ball yard. I think adding 2 running backs like this to the roster is going to change the dynamic of our offense and what we are and aren't able to do in terms of moving the ball and moving the chain. So big glaring weakness for since Nick Chubb's grotesque injury in Pittsburgh. We've needed talent in the running back room. I think we got it, and I'm happy that, given our division and the weather here, that we got some running backs.
I'm so excited for this preseason. I think it's the most excited for a preseason I've ever been. I am going to all the training camps I can make it to. I don't care what other commitments I got going on. I will be there for the preseason game. There's only one this year, which is a travesty, because I want to go to both of them just so I could see 5 quarterbacks play in a game and see which one is the best. They better give me some content to be able to watch that isn't just their normal podcast with Zagura talking about what's going on behind the scenes. No, I want a camera in Stefanski's face, asking him the hard questions of, well, what's the depth chart looking like? And I know they post the depth chart, so I will definitely have the post notifications on for depth chart Mondays when they post the depth chart throughout training camp. I am so excited for this season now.
I love your excitement, but I got to call you out, because this is the best case of recency bias I think I've ever seen. Because 100%. I think 2 years ago, you're like, this is the most excited I've ever been, but I love it.
It's a new peak, because it feels like a new beginning. We're shedding the Deshaun Watson skin. They are picking good character guys. I think that's something we should touch on too. All of these guys have been considered good character, minus Shedeur's cockiness, but you know what I mean by good character when I talk about Deshaun Watson. It just feels like a new era, a fresh restart, something to get excited to. It reminds me in a different way, not the same way, but in a different way, of that 2018 draft where we got Denzel Ward, we got Baker Mayfield, we got Nick Chubb, we got a couple good picks there. We were feeling excited. There was a lot going on. There was a lot to buy into. It's just that renewed fandom, I guess, is what I'm high on right now.
Yeah. Which, by the way, you said Shedeur, the only downside, his cockiness. I do want to say, we talked about why the slide, the cockiness, etc. He's never put a foot out of place off the field. You can say what you will about what he says, what he posts, whatever, but he's never been in trouble with the law. He's never been in trouble with drugs. He's been pretty much pitch perfect. So it is sad, his character gets dragged a bit. And again, people don't like, you're potentially going into a locker room with guys that came from nothing, and you're flashing around all the money you have. People don't like that, but that's not a crime. And I think that how he gets dragged, it's really a shame for this young man that really has done nothing wrong in his life or career thus far.
And one thing I know for sure is that he'll have an opportunity to prove himself in the fall. I don't know if it's going to be backup or third string, starter at some point, what injuries are going to look like, what Flacco's going to play like. But if Shedeur wants to change the narrative, it just starts with the work and it starts with how you look. And if he comes in, he's an upstanding individual, takes it seriously and turns himself into a good quarterback, that's the best way to prove all the haters wrong and to shut them up.
I'm so excited to see how this goes because I think they are really high on Dylan Sampson, or not Dylan. Yes, they are high on Dylan Sampson. Dylan Gabriel, I think they are high on Kenny Pickett. Obviously, they know what they've got in Joe Flacco to an extent out of that fun run that we had with him. And then they end up adding what is one of the most talented, quarterbacks in this draft that fell. Like, just watching this play out, I have no clue. They have thrown me for a curveball since Thursday, and they are going to continue to throw me for a curveball because we have 5 quarterbacks on our roster. We have 2 running backs and a guy that's started for us in Jerome Ford, a potential Nick Chubb coming back. We didn't take any receivers. Does that mean there's a trade coming soon so they can add some more firepower to the receiver room? Myles Garrett was leaving, and now he's back. I mean, this offseason is and continues to be an absolute freaking roller coaster. And I'm all the way here for it now.
By the way, you both have seen the movie Air, the Michael Jordan Nike Air movie. This is like dead on in that speech that Sonny gives, talking about they're going to build you up just to tear you down. I mean, we saw people celebrating the prank phone calls that Shedeur was getting that he was being drafted. It's just so sad. That's why I hope he puts his head down and just works. Shedeur, I know you're listening, so I'll say that this city will absolutely love you if you go put in the work and play well for us. It could go the other way if you don't play well, so no pressure. But we really do back our guys here, and it's such a great city. You'll learn that soon enough, which you hear it from the Cavs guys all the time right now that they can't believe, like, you wouldn't know it without living here, but you're going to learn real soon.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. And what I can guarantee you is that come hell or high water, good performance, bad performance, the boys at the office are going to be here with you through all of it. Looking forward. I'm excited as Noah is to see what's going on. I'm not as excited to go. I'm not wishing for more preseason football games. He went a step further than I would have there, but short of that, I'm with him, man. I can't wait to see what the quarterback's going to do, what the running backs look like. I don't know if I could give it a letter grade. It's too early to start talking about wins and losses, but I know that I feel better post-draft than I did pre-draft because we addressed a lot of areas of need, and I'm hoping these guys produce.
I think we should. I think it's a good way to bow tie it. Our way too early letter grades on this draft.
I like it.
I mean, from what I saw, I'll go first. I guess you guys went first on the other ones, and I got the question. Shit, man. I don't know how you give him anything other than an A for the draft at this point. 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, somebody that Noah says is going to be the next great coming, a defensive tackle. I hope he's right. Going into the draft, what you're trying to accomplish with areas of need and getting a full quarterback. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you give him anything other than an A. Feel free to disagree and tell me why, but I think they did a great job today. Now, who the hell knows what we'll grade it a year from now?
I'll go next because I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't like that they took, I almost said Dylan Sampson again. Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, especially with the fact that we did end up taking Shedeur. I could have just lived without that pick. I get that they're high on him and why they took him, though. So with that being said, it's not an A. It's an A-. Smiley face.
It's funny you say that. There were some guys available in spots that I really wanted to take, like Ashon Genty is going to be a beast. We could have got him. Listen, 32 NFL executives and owners walked away last night saying we got our guys. And the fact is, time will tell whether or not that's true, but I agree with you, Noah, that I think it is an A-. They reached here and there, but overall, they did an extremely good job. They got a lot of value. It could not have gone much better.
That's 3 good grades from 3 people who are pretty critical of the Browns when it comes to drafting and talent on the whole. I'll take it. I call it a win. All All right, boys, this was an emergency meeting. Any last thoughts on the draft or anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, national media, the big names. Mel Kiper's the one that comes to mind because we referenced him earlier on the show. There are a lot of talking heads that have a lot of great things to say about what the Browns did in this draft. You can be salty because there's 2 quarterbacks. You could be salty because they didn't take Genty and they took Graham, or whatever you could be potentially upset about. The fact that Hunter's not here, regardless. When the national media speaks positive about Cleveland, because it's very seldom, I think we should listen. And I think this is going to be a piece, not the whole thing, but a piece in this franchise going towards a brighter spot like they were a couple years ago.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that a little bit just to say that the other thing that I look for in the draft, and it's outside of our control, don't get me wrong, but it's what our division rivals do as well. And outside of maybe Baltimore, I would argue that we did the most to make ourselves a better team in the AFC North. Pittsburgh did okay in their draft, but they didn't draft guys that scares me and goes, they're back there in the Super Bowl next year. Who knows? They're one decent quarterback away from that potentially. But I think based on what I've seen, we're right there. I'm really excited going into next year. Did our win total change? By the way, we keep talking about this because we talked a lot about the D tackle. So one last quick question. You guys have said, adding that D tackle in that 5th round or that 5th overall spot did not change our win total. But now that we saw the entire draft, are you saying more or less wins or about the same?
I say more. Tight end, running back, defensive line. We got better at a lot of spots. At least we hope. We don't know how these guys are going to play. But the biggest reason is you filled up a quarterback room where I just kept going. This guy isn't very good, and this guy isn't young. And we're going to have an issue there that we have to rectify. And now we got 2 additional good, solid options of talent at quarterback, which is the most important position. And that alone is enough for me to be optimistic. So I don't know how many we'll see as training camp goes on. But, yeah, I definitely think the Browns win more games as a result of this draft overall.
Yeah, I think it could play into more wins. I can't in good faith think that they're going to be a playoff team or any of that after what I've said and how critical I've been. But
above
I do
500?
I don't even know if I can say that yet because we don't know what we have out of these quarterbacks. We don't know what we have out of these guys. Do we feel good about what some of these prospects are? 110%. But we felt good about Ryan Leaf is a prospect that was highly rated. And how did that turn out? So to me, I feel optimistic as I always am. In the back of my mind, I think the Browns are going to go 17-0 because they're just going to pop off and go crazy for whatever reason. And I'm that type of person to think that way. But in good faith, I don't know if they'll be above 500. I don't know if they'll be a playoff team, but hell, it's going to be a fun season. It's not going to be doom and gloom and Deshaun Watson depression and all the stuff that we felt this past year. I feel like even if it's a 7-win team, even if it's a 5-win team, it has a different feeling, a growth feeling that just makes me really excited to be a Cleveland sports fan for the first time in like the last week, I guess, because I'm always excited to be a Cleveland sports fan.
I tend to agree with both of you. I will say that, listen, I know it's crazy, but I am putting the Browns to be above 500. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but I think they'll be above 500. I don't put much stock into what the experts say because Kuiper said that Jimmy Clausen was going to be the next John Elway or whatever. So, I mean, that guy's missed more than Jamarcus Russell was another really big one for him. He's missed a lot, but I don't know what John said. We filled in a lot of areas of need. And if you can do that, we also got a lot of day one starters, in my opinion, day one potential players or people that will see action. When you can do that, I don't know. It's looking good.
Agreed.
I got one final question because, John, I can tell you're trying to wrap us up right now.
No, you're good. We can go as long as you guys want.
Do we see Shedeur Sanders play a snap of football for the Cleveland Browns in 2025?
Oh, yes 1,000%, yes.
Without a doubt. Even if it's the
Like you-
easy answer that's like they'll put a package in where they use his athleticism to, like, I don't know. Like, yes, we'll see him for a snap this season, especially if he comes out number 2. We know somebody's going to get banged up, even if it's only for a series or a couple plays.
I agree. I think we'll see. I think he'll start a game this season, even if you don't think he should because you want to develop. I think he starts a game for the Cleveland Browns this season. And that game, the Muni lot, the energy, the anticipation that we might have our guy is going to be like any other. And I cannot wait for the week that we sit down on this show and talk about Sanders' first start.
I'm here for it.
And we will be throughout the season, guys. Great show tonight. To everybody listening, thank you for joining us at the office. Don't forget, hit the subscribe or the download button if you're listening to the audio only version of our show. I'm getting like a phone call on my computer. Apologies. Check us out on all the socials at the office Clee, and thank you to Fans First Sports Network and D&D Meadery for the sponsorship. We don't know what the Browns are going to do. We got a lot to go before the season starts, but I feel better today than I did before the draft. So soak that in for a moment. Enjoy it. You know, as a Browns fan, it doesn't always last. Thank you for joining us at the office. And until next time, you guys take it easy. Peace.